In the quiet town of Zubari, everyone knew Amara and Juwon. They were the kind of couple that made you believe in true love. They laughed easily, held hands like teenagers, and seemed perfectly in sync. People would smile just watching them walk by. But everything changed on one rainy evening. It had been pouring all day and the roads were slick. Amara and Juwon were driving home after visiting her mother. They were talking, laughing, just like always. But then, out of nowhere, a truck lost control and slammed into their car. The world went black. Juwon woke up in the hospital with a broken arm and bruises. But Amara was worse. She was in a coma for 3 days. When she finally opened her eyes, something was different. She looked at Juwon with blank eyes. No smile, no recognition. "Who are you?" she whispered. That moment shattered Juwon's heart. The doctors said she had memory loss from the trauma. She remembered her name, basic things, but not him, not their life, not their love. Juwon had lost his wife, not to death, but to forgetting. The woman who used to call him my love now looked at him like a stranger. He held her hand anyway, even when she pulled away. In that moment, he knew this was the beginning of a new journey. He had to make her fall in love with him all over again. And he would, because love like theirs doesn't just disappear. When Juwon walked into Amara's hospital room, his heart was full of hope. He had waited all night by her side, praying she would wake up. And now, finally, her eyes were open. But what happened next broke him in a way he never expected. Amara looked at him, blinking slowly, confused. Her eyes moved across his face like she was trying to place him, like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "Hi," she said softly. "Are you one of the doctors?" Juwon smiled, but it trembled at the corners. "No, love. It's me. It's Juwon, your husband." He stepped closer, gently holding her hand, but her fingers didn't curl around his like they used to. She pulled away slightly, like his touch was too familiar for someone she didn't know. I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't remember you." Those words cut deeper than anything he had ever felt. His wife, his best friend, his soulmate, was looking at him like a stranger. He wanted to cry right there, but he didn't. Instead, he nodded slowly, his voice calm. "That's okay. It's okay, Amara. You've been through a lot." He sat beside her bed, pretending his heart wasn't breaking. He told her simple things, her name, where they lived, how they met. She listened politely, like someone hearing a sweet but distant story. And the more she listened, the more he saw the confusion in her eyes. It wasn't just forgetting. It was like the love they had never existed at all. But Juwon didn't give up. Every day he came back, brought her flowers, brought her the snacks she used to love, played her favorite songs, hoping something, anything, would feel familiar. Some days she smiled, some days she was distant. But no matter what, he stayed kind, stayed strong. At night, when he was alone, he let the tears come. He cried into his pillow, asking why this had to happen to them. But in the morning, he always showed up with a smile, because he didn't want her to see his pain. He just wanted her to feel safe. To her, he was just a kind-faced man who came every day and talked to her like they shared something special. And even if she didn't remember him, he remembered everything. And that was enough, for now. Every morning, Juwon walked into Amara's hospital room with the same quiet determination. He brought her fresh flowers, her favorite fruit juice, and a soft smile, like he wasn't hurting inside. She would look at him with those same distant eyes, still unsure who he was. But he never let that stop him. He stood by her bed and watched her sleep, his heart aching, but full of hope. The woman lying there was still his wife. She may not remember their wedding, their late-night talks, or the way she used to rest her head on his shoulder, but he did. Every single detail was still alive in him. And so, in that silence, he made a promise to himself, "I'll make her fall in love with me again, no matter how long it takes." It wasn't just words. It became his mission. He started small. He learned what made her comfortable now, what scents calmed her, what colors made her smile. He didn't push her to remember. He simply showed up. Every single day. He would sit beside her and read her favorite books aloud, even though she had no idea she had once loved them. Sometimes she would listen quietly. Sometimes she would fall asleep halfway. But Juwon didn't mind. Every moment spent with her was a step closer to her heart. He told her stories, not just about her past, but also about who she was. He reminded her how she used to sing while cooking, how she danced barefoot in the rain, how she once beat him in a game of chess and wouldn't stop bragging for a week. At first, she just smiled politely, but slowly, He saw something shift, like her heart recognized the love, even if her mind didn't. Other people told him to give up. Maybe she'll never remember, they said. Maybe it's time to move on. But how do you move on from the one person who made your world feel like home? Juwon didn't believe in giving up. He believed in love. And more than anything, he believed in her. He knew this wouldn't be easy. There would be good days and bad ones. Days when she smiled and days when she cried in confusion. But no matter how long it took, weeks, months, years, he was ready. Because love isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about showing up, staying close, and waiting patiently for a spark to return. And so, with every heartbeat, Juwon held on to his promise. He had won her heart once. He would do it again. Juwon showed up at the hospital every single day, just like clockwork. He didn't come with pressure or big expectations. He came with love, patience, and stories. Each visit, he sat beside Amara and started with a simple, warm hello. It was like they were meeting for the first time, again and again. And in a way, they were. He told her about their first date, how they had gone to Obudu Hills, how she had worn a yellow dress and had been terrified of the cable cars, but still got on just to prove she was brave, how they got lost on a trail and ended up laughing so hard they forgot they were even lost. Amara would listen quietly, eyes wide, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the edge of her bedsheet. Was I really like that? She asked once, half smiling. Yes, Juwon said softly. You were bold, kind, and full of laughter. Still are. He told her about her favorite songs, how she used to sing along to them in the kitchen while cooking, how she'd twirl him around, even when he was in the middle of washing dishes. He played those songs on his phone during their visits, watching her face for even the smallest reaction. Sometimes she would hum along without realizing. Sometimes she'd tap her fingers lightly on the blanket. He reminded her how she used to love dancing in the rain, how she once dragged him outside during a storm, barefoot and soaking wet, just because she said rain made her feel alive. She looked at him curiously then, her voice soft. That doesn't sound like me. It is you, he whispered. Even if you don't remember, your heart does. There were days when she seemed confused, unsure of why this man kept coming back, telling her stories that felt like dreams. But there were also moments, quiet, beautiful moments, when something in her shifted, a look, a pause, a tear, as if her soul was whispering, this matters, this means something. Juwon never rushed her. He didn't ask her to remember. He just shared pieces of their past, gently laying them before her like breadcrumbs, hoping one day she would follow them home. And even though her mind still felt like a blank slate, something was beginning to stir inside her, a soft pull, a quiet warmth. She started smiling more, asking him questions. What happened after that? Or, did I really do that? It wasn't memory, not yet, but it was connection. It was the beginning of something new, built from the ashes of what was lost. Juwon knew they were starting from scratch, but if he had to begin with hello 1,000 times just to reach her heart again, he would. Because every hello was one step closer to hearing her say, I remember you. It started with a laugh, small, sudden, and unexpected. Juwon had been telling her one of his usual silly stories, just trying to lighten the mood. He mentioned a joke they used to share, one he'd told her 100 times before the accident. He didn't even expect her to react. But then, out of nowhere, Amara chuckled, a real, honest laugh. She looked surprised by it too, as if the sound had come from somewhere deep inside her. Juwon froze. His heart skipped. You remember that? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. She tilted her head. I don't know. It just felt funny, like I've heard it before. That moment felt like sunlight after a long, cold storm. For the first time, Juwon saw a crack in the wall that memory loss had built. A tiny window had opened, and through it came a glimpse of the woman he once knew so well. And then came the song. A few days later, Juwon brought his phone and played music during their visit. One of the songs was their wedding song, the one they danced to under fairy lights in Makuta Garden. As the melody played softly, Amara began to hum along. She didn't even notice at first. Her voice was light, calm, almost like a reflex. But Juwon noticed, his eyes filled with tears. You know this song, he said gently. She paused, confused. I do. You hummed it perfectly. It was our first dance. She looked at him, surprised. It feels nice. I don't know how, but it does. These little moments became everything. One day she asked if they used to cook together. Another day she said his cologne smelled familiar in a comforting way. They weren't full memories. They were flickers, feelings, instincts, shadows of their love floating back to her heart. Hope grew slowly, like a plant reaching for light after being buried. Juwon didn't rush it. He just stayed close. He celebrated every small sign, every half-remembered detail, like it was a miracle, because to him, it was. She started smiling more when he arrived. She asked him to stay longer. She began telling him about dreams she had, dreams of laughter and warm sunsets, of holding hands with someone she couldn't quite picture. And every time, Juwon would listen with quiet joy, thinking, "That's us. You're dreaming of us." No, she didn't have all her memories back. Not yet, maybe not ever, but the little things she remembered, his jokes, their song, the way she felt when he was near, they were proof that love was still there, buried beneath the fog. It hadn't vanished. It was just waiting to be found again, and piece by piece, it was coming home. Juwon never rushed her. He didn't ask her to try harder to remember, and he never got upset when she didn't. Instead, he simply showed up, kind, patient, and full of quiet love. He understood now that this wasn't about getting the past back. It was about building something new from the pieces they still had. Slowly, Amara began to trust him. It started with little things. She no longer looked surprised when he walked into the room. She smiled when she saw him. She let him hold her hand during their afternoon walks in the hospital garden. At first, she said it was just because it made her feel safe. But even safety is a kind of love, Juwon thought. He started taking her on short outings when the doctors allowed it. They would sit at a small cafe near the hospital and drink tea together. She always picked the same flavor she used to love, hibiscus, sweet with a touch of ginger, even though she didn't remember it. "Something about this just feels right," she said once. And Juwon smiled, tucking that moment deep into his heart. They watched sunsets together, sometimes in silence, sometimes with soft conversation. Juwon would tell her about their past, about how they used to race to catch the sunset before it disappeared behind the hills, how she once said it was like watching the sky fall asleep. Amara would listen closely, and though she didn't always remember, she often said, "I wish I did." One evening, as they sat on a bench under the pink and gold sky, she leaned her head gently on his shoulder. No words were said, no memories returned, but her touch spoke volumes. It wasn't the past coming back. It was something new being born. Amara was falling in love again, not because she remembered who he used to be, but because of who he was right now. A man who showed up every day, who never gave up, who made her feel seen. Even when she felt lost in her own mind, she found comfort in his laugh, in the way he listened without judgment, in the warmth of his presence. To her, every smile, every shared cup of tea, every walk under the trees was new. But to Juwon, it was familiar and precious. He watched her fall in love with him, one moment at a time. And even though it was different this time, it was just as beautiful, maybe even more so, because now their love wasn't just about memory, it was about choice. She was choosing him without the past to guide her, and that made every small step, every soft laugh, every quiet look feel like a miracle. They were starting over, but somehow it still felt like home. One quiet afternoon, Juwon walked into Amara's room carrying a simple wooden box. He had spent days preparing it, filling it with pieces of their life, pieces she had forgotten, but he had carefully kept safe. Photos, love letters, little souvenirs, and even short videos. This wasn't just a box, it was their story. Amara looked at it curiously. "What's this?" she asked. "It's you. It's us," Juwon said gently, placing it on her lap. "I thought maybe we could open it together." She slowly lifted the lid, and the first thing she saw was a photo of them laughing, standing in front of a waterfall. Her hair was wet, her eyes were bright, and Juwon was looking at her like she was the only person in the world. Amara stared at it for a long time. "Was this real?" she whispered. "Did I laugh like that?" Juwon nodded. "You did. That was on our trip to Ereni Jaisha Falls. You dragged me into the water, even though I didn't want to get my shoes wet." A soft smile appeared on her face. "I look happy." "You were," he said quietly. "We both were." They went through more photos together, her in a yellow dress at Obudu Hills, him carrying her on his back during a hike, their first apartment with messy walls, but so much love. Each photo unlocked a feeling in her. She still didn't remember, but her eyes welled up with tears. Something about the pictures stirred her soul. Then came the wedding photo. She picked it up slowly. It was them under the trees at Makuta Garden, surrounded by fairy lights, petals on the ground, their hands joined, and joy radiating from their faces. Amara gasped. Her fingers trembled. "That's me?" "Yes," Juwon said. "That was our wedding day. You were glowing. You kept saying it was the happiest day of your life." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I was that happy once," she whispered. "You still can be," he said softly. "You are. It's still inside you." Then she reached for a letter, her own handwriting. She read it slowly. It was a love letter she had once written to Juwon, full of laughter, dreams, and promises. Reading her own words made her cry even more. "I don't remember writing this," she said, "but I feel everything I said." They spent hours going through the memory box, watching old video clips of their vacations, their silly dancing, her surprise birthday party, their quiet nights at home. Sometimes she laughed, sometimes she cried, but all the while, something was changing. She wasn't just seeing the life she had lost. She was starting to feel it again. It wasn't about bringing her memory back all at once. It was about reminding her that love leaves traces, in smiles, in letters, in music, in moments. And now, piece by piece, she was finding her way back to it. That day, holding her wedding photo and wiping tears from her face, Amara whispered, "Maybe I don't remember it all, but I think I believe it." And to Juwon, that was everything. It was just starting to feel like hope again. Amara had been laughing more, asking questions about their past, holding Juwon's hand like it was something familiar, something safe. They had watched the sunset 2 nights in a row without her feeling confused. She had even started calling him Juwon, with a softness in her voice that made his heart flutter. It felt like the pieces were slowly, gently falling back into place. Then one morning, everything changed. Juwon walked into her hospital room with his usual smile and a fresh cup of hibiscus tea, just the way she liked it. But the moment their eyes met, he felt it. The stillness, the distance, the way she looked at him like he was someone she had never seen before. "Hi," she said cautiously, pulling the blanket closer to her. "Who are you?" Juwon froze. His heart dropped. "It's me, Juwon." She looked down, uncomfortable. "I'm sorry. I don't think I know you." The cup shook in his hand. He set it down quickly, trying to steady his voice. "We've been talking every day. We're married, Amara." Her face was blank. No sign of recognition. No flicker of memory. Nothing. He stepped out of the room, quietly, and when he was alone in the hallway, he finally let the tears fall. He had been so sure she was getting better, so sure that love was winning. But now, it felt like the rug had been pulled out from under him again. He sat down on a bench, hands shaking, and for a moment, he thought about giving up. Maybe it was too much. Maybe this kind of heartbreak wasn't something he could keep surviving. But then he remembered her laugh when he told that old joke, her humming their wedding song without even knowing it, the way she'd leaned on his shoulder during the sunset. Those weren't just memories. They were moments from this version of her, the one who didn't remember everything, but who still somehow felt love anyway. So he stood up, wiped his eyes, took a deep breath, and walked back in. She looked at him nervously, still unsure. He gave her a soft smile and sat down beside her. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm Juwon. I know you don't remember me right now, but we've been through a lot together. Would it be okay if I tell you our story?" She paused, then nodded slowly. And just like that, he began again, from the beginning. Their first date, her favorite songs, the way she danced in the rain, the wedding at Makuta Garden, the memory box, the laughter, the love. Because love doesn't quit, not real love. It doesn't run when things fall apart. It stays, it fights, it begins again, even if it's for the 100th time. And in that moment, as he held her hand and spoke softly, like he had all the time in the world, Juwon knew one thing for sure. Even if she forgot 1,000 times, he would remind her 1,001. It had been weeks since the relapse, weeks of starting over, retelling stories, rebuilding trust. Juwon was tired, but he never showed it. Every day, he came with the same gentle smile and the same soft voice, ready to remind Amara of who she was and who they were. She had started warming up to him again, bit by bit. She laughed more. She asked more questions. Sometimes she'd finish his sentences without knowing how. Sometimes she'd react to his stories before he even finished them, like her heart was remembering what her mind couldn't. One afternoon, they sat together on a bench under a tree in the hospital garden. The breeze was soft, and the sky was painted with gentle colors from the setting sun. They were quiet, just enjoying the moment. Amara leaned her head slightly toward him, not touching, just close enough that he could feel her comfort with his presence. She didn't say much that day, neither did he. Sometimes silence between two people says more than 100 words. Then, out of nowhere, she turned to him slowly and said, "You feel like home." The words were soft, but they hit him like thunder. He blinked, unsure if he heard her right. "What did you say?" She looked down, almost shy. "I don't know why. When I sit with you, I feel safe, like I'm supposed to be here." He couldn't speak. His throat tightened. He wanted to say something, anything, but the emotion in his chest was too heavy. Then she smiled at him, a small, calm smile, and whispered, "My love." It was quiet, like she was trying the words on for the first time, but they fit, they belonged, and that was it. That was the moment. Juwon broke down. Silent tears streamed down his face. He didn't care who saw. After everything, the accident, the blank stares, the heartbreak, the relapse, this single moment was worth it all. She looked a little confused, worried that she'd upset him. "Did I say something wrong?" He shook his head quickly, laughing through the tears. "No, Amara. No, you said everything right." She reached out and wiped a tear from his cheek, and something about the way she touched him, so gentle, so natural, told him her heart still remembered, even if her mind didn't. She might not recall every detail. She might forget again tomorrow. But right now, in that soft moment under the setting sun, she knew him, she felt him, she loved him, and that was enough. Sometimes love doesn't need a perfect memory. Sometimes it just needs presence, a quiet moment, a familiar hand to hold, and the courage to say, even in the middle of the unknown, you feel like home. Amara still doesn't remember everything. Some days, faces blur. Some moments are just out of reach. There are holes in her memory she may never fill, but none of that matters anymore. Not to her, and not to Juwon, because what she does know is enough. She knows the sound of his laugh makes her smile without trying. She knows that when he holds her hand, the world feels a little steadier. She knows his kindness, his patience, and the way his eyes light up when he talks about their life, even the parts she can't recall. Most of all, she knows one simple truth: Juwon is her heart. One day, Amara was invited to share her journey on a podcast. Nervous but determined, she spoke about everything, about the accident, the darkness, the forgetting, and how Juwon loved her through it all. She talked about the memory box, the sunsets, and the days she called him my love, without even knowing why. By the time the episode aired, people across Africa were sharing it. Strangers sent messages of love and tears. Couples said it reminded them to hold each other tighter. Young people said it taught them what real love looks like. The story spread like wildfire. People began calling it the love story that redefined forever. But for Amara and Juwon, the viral fame wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the quiet miracle between them, that even without perfect memory, their love had survived. Not because they held on to the past, but because they kept choosing each other day after day. And in that choice, they found something stronger than memory. They found forever.